Yes, welcome into a hurricane-affected edition of the Horse Racing Happy Hour. His name's Dan Illman. I'm Louie Rabeau here in my backyard in Louisville, Kentucky. How about that? There's a tree. Look, see a tree? How about that? Dan lives somewhere with no trees. How are you, Dan?
There are some trees around here. I don't get to see them that often. I'm stuck in this office handicapping races that are transferred from Saturday to Sunday or not even being scheduled at all. Racetracks across the country canceling tonight, tomorrow, Saturday.
I heard you're the reason they canceled that Evangeline tonight. Is that true?
That's the reason. They call me Hurricane Illman. I take down the pools down there, and they're just not used to it.
Eat it, Evangeline. How about that? This is the Horse Racing Happy Hour at Horse Happy Hour on Twitter. You can find Dan at DRF_Dan Illman on Twitter as well. I'm at Radio Louie. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. A real question. I don't know if the answer is as obvious as I think it is, but say a move from Saturday to Sunday on the Arlington Million, does that change your handicapping very much?
No, not really. I mean, I'm just expecting that this turf course, no matter what day they're going to run on, is going to be very, very soft. And I think you should adjust your handicapping accordingly. I mean, I guess there's a chance that it could wash things off the turf for some of the undercard races. But I think on Saturday, that would have been a given. So it's a good move to move it to Sunday. It's not going to affect my handicapping that much. We'll see. Some of these horses are cross-entered elsewhere, whether it be up at Saratoga or at Woodbine. Still waiting on decisions for several of these connections.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch all of those come together for sure. But we had a couple of interesting races last week, Dan, that I wanted to watch with you today. Let's start with Arthur's Ride. Wins the Whitney up there. I remember making the comment last week on the show, what if Bill Mott just does this again? And he does this again. Hasn't won a Whitney before, but now he has. Here's Arthur's Ride.
Lengths to Disarm, who is racing about a length and a half in front of Crouppy, starting to launch his bid. Bright Future far back, 1:10-1 for 6 furlongs. Top of the stretch for Arthur's Ride, chased intently by Skippy Longstocking, and National Treasure still with plenty of work to do. Post time is next, and Crouppy coming fast in the center of the racetrack. A 16th to go, and Arthur's Ride still has a commanding lead. What a tremendous debut in stakes competition.
All right, well, there you go. A very excited race call there from Frank Miramati up at Saratoga, as he should be. Frankly, it was a bit of a surprising outcome there, Dan. If you put that next to the Preakness and you just had the two gray horses out front and then two horses chasing furiously at the end, and we put them on the same reel, would it look exactly the same?
I think it would look exactly the same. Absolutely. Listen, this handicap division needed a wow performance, didn't it? I mean, no disrespect to Senor Buscador, who's very, very good. Hopefully we'll see him at Delamar. I think they're going to gradually wind him back up. Maybe the Pat O'Brien that's going 7 might be the way back for him. No disrespect to National Treasures, had an exceptional year, but we needed a wow performance for a horse to really sort of take this division by the throat. And that performance, I know it was on a wet track, but he played National Treasure's game. And that game is speed. And when you can outfoot National Treasure to the front and take that field wire to wire the way this horse did, that's very, very impressive. I'm expecting Bill Mott's going to run this horse right back in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He's going to be big favorite in that race. And if he wins, probably 2 months to the Breeders' Cup Classic. And he is a massive speed player in that race.
I mean, looking at what is this site called? DRF.com. They come out with weekly ratings within the divisions in the older dirt males. This horse jumped to the second spot, Dan, right behind the aforementioned Senor Buscador. Are we starting to, I mean, do you think Belmont's starting to dream with this horse? Just because like you said, I'm not at all sure we've been blown away by anyone in the Breeders' Cup Classic division, if you will.
Oh, I think Bill Mott certainly believes in this horse. This horse was always good. It's a shame that his career was sort of derailed for a little while by some lengthy layoffs, but I think Bill's gotten this horse back right now, and he knows what he wants to do with this horse. That sent him to the front. He just played a really dangerous speed game with National Treasure. It just seems that National Treasure is not as good when he doesn't make the lead in these major races. That's something that maybe Bob Babbitt's going to have to work on with National Treasure down the road. No, I think Bill knows what he has with this horse, and he's managed him very, very well. I think the Jockey Club was kind of the main plan. That was the bridge. Whitney to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Let's get him to the Jockey Club, prove him at a distance of ground. I don't think he's going to have a problem with it.
Do you think he was a race earlier than Bill Mott thought he was going to be?
No, I don't think so. I think Bill.
All right, he knew what he had.
I think Bill again really wanted a point for the Jockey Club, but I don't think he just popped in this race and Bill's going to say, "Wow, he's going to bounce in the Jockey Club." I think the Jockey Club, he might have scared some horses off with that performance. He'll get some nice older horses in that race, but I think with his speed, there's a chance he could just control the race. In the Whitney, on paper, it looked like there was a ton of speed in the race, and he just was faster than all of them.
Yeah, the best buyer of anyone going 2 turns on dirt this year in North America was that race. Speaking of running behind him was National Treasure. Conditions, travel, etc. Do we expect a better version of him at Del Mar in the Breeders' Cup?
I think you should. I think the wet track is a natural excuse, but I would have liked to have seen him run a little bit better. And again,
He didn't run well at all. That's right.
He just didn't run very well. And I think we're at the point where he sort of hulks up when he gets to the front and he gets to the lead. And I think he gets a little bit discouraged when he's playing a chase game. And I think that's what happened at Saratoga. So I don't know if he's fast enough to get the lead from Arthur's Ride on a fast track, but I think that's going to be the plan the next time they face, if they do face, is that National Treasure is going to really try to take the race to Arthur's Ride and make him take a seat. It'll be an interesting game of chicken. Maybe sets things up for a closer.
I'm interested because Saudi Crown, I love this stuff. Saudi Crown runs for $20 million and misses by less than a length earlier this year. He's running into Cowboy Jones for $1.50 at Ellis on Sunday. I think part of this, and if in other interviews that I've had with Brad Cox, he has talked a lot about getting confidence in horses, right? Getting them to a point where they win races, they see themselves at the front again. I totally expect that's what it is. Where does Saudi Crown fit in your potentials for Breeders' Cup Classic type horses?
Well, I think we're going to find out in the next race where he sort of fits, because yes, it's going to be a confidence booster, but considering the quality of competition he's facing, he should win. I'm really not worried off the layoff. And I think Brad not only wants to see him win, I think he wants to see him put on a show.
I agree.
Where does he fit? Is it going to be the Breeders' Cup Classic, or does Brad say we've got a late start with him back from overseas? Is it the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, a race where this horse's tactical and natural speed can help him sort of control the pace? I'm not exactly sure where they're going to go with this horse. Obviously, Brad would love to run him in the Classic, but I'm a little worried that maybe there are some distance concerns there that he still might have. That being said, First Mission was so bad, albeit on a wet track, that maybe Brad needs this horse in the Classic.
No, that might be right. I just, it is an interesting in between because the horse is good at a mile. He just is. It's okay to say. It wasn't great last out, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much stock I put in the Arabian Peninsula races in this case, but I mean, a horse named Saudi Crown should run better in Riyadh, but it is what it is. All right. So that division turning into an interesting one, which is fun. Which is the best of the 3-year-olds there, Dan? Is it Dornoch at this point?
Oh, Dornoch's the most accomplished horse at this point, and you have to respect any horse that has the speed, is able to carry that speed a distance of ground with the courage that the horse has shown in his last 2 races. Is he the best one? Well, I guess with Mindframe now on the shelf, he probably is the best one. I'm curious to see what happens if he and Fierceness just sort of go at it for a prolonged 3 furlongs. Is he going to be able to turn away Fierceness as easily as he did Mindframe in his last 2? And it wasn't exactly easy. The waters keep getting deeper. It's so hard. It's so amazing to say. This horse won the Belmont, right? He won last time out in impressive fashion. He's still going to keep getting deeper for this horse because a lot of these other 3-year-olds are still just improving. These second season 3-year-olds are going to make a surge. If you weren't impressed with the first season 3-year-olds, and unfortunately Mystic Dan's going to be out for the rest of the year, keep an eye on some of these horses. And again, Forever Young is lurking somewhere in Japan. I would expect him to come back. I think he might be the best one.
I think you may be right there. Let's move to our next replay. This will be Ways and Means, and I do want to talk about her because I think she's in and what's become an exceedingly interesting filly and mare sprint division. So let's go to that. This was the test last weekend at Saratoga. She wins over the 7 furlongs there, and frankly, I thought she looked really good.
Stride, Ways and Means, puts her neck in front, past the quarter pole. My Main Squeeze trying to come after them in third. They have 3/16 of a mile to go. Ways and Means puts away Emery and opens up 2. My Main Squeeze running a good race on the outside, and Denim and Pearls in 4th. Coming to the 16th pole, and Ways and Means is now a Grade 1 winner. Handwritten by Flavien Prat to win the test.
Flavien Prat, he's made some money this year. Good move to New York for that guy. Did just a fantastic job on her. Never got out the crop or anything like that. It's an interesting division, Dan, because we're looking at, say, I mean, for sure, in that group of the older, turf females, we're certainly talking about Vava as far as sprinting. But we've seen some, Goodnight Olive retires, other things move up. Is there any way that Ways and Means, another race, maybe 2 races before we get to that Breeders' Cup, that she's part of that equation when we get to that Saturday in November?
I think she's a major part of that equation, and that's no disrespect to the fillies that we've seen sprinting right now, especially Vava, who you mentioned, just seems to show up each and every time with a rock-solid good effort. But I think the case can be made that Ways and Means is still so lightly raced, we may not have even seen her best, and that's pretty scary. Remember, this is a horse that showed a ton of talent from day one. Debut winner last year at Saratoga. It's a super impressive performance. She was the favorite in the spin-away and only her second lifetime start. Unfortunately, she got hurt in the race, missed a lot of time. Chad tried to get her back on the Oaks Trail. Gulfstream Park Oaks, watch that trip again. Big early move into the teeth of the pace, giving up recency to some pretty nice 3-year-old fillies, and then understandably tiring anyone that gets beat by Torpedo Anna. You don't hold that against her, that she's just a beast right now. That was the Kentucky Oaks. This is what she wants to do. Maybe she just picks up the mantle for Chad where Goodnight Olive left off.
Yeah, it could be for sure. I'm trying to figure out who else is going to be at the very top of that division, but you want a 103 buyer, I got you. It's Vava and it's her, right? It really literally is that so far this year. It's really fun to get. It's always nice when that next horse emerges within a division, right? Especially within this kind of division where we did lose a horse like Goodnight Olive, who was just terrific every time she showed up. So nice to see her running as well. Well, the Hirsch happened at Del Mar. We will be running the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar this year, and Adair Manor looked like, well, Adair Manor. So here is the stretch run of that race as she, frankly, if Mirabati were called this race, he would have called it a paid workout. Here we go.
But Elm Drive's not going to throw in the towel. Kicks on for home, and Elm Drive is tough on the lead. Adair Manor chased after her, and now Desert Dawn from last. And here's Desert Dawn on the outside in the blue cap, coming to make it a 3-way duel. Homeward Bound and Elm Drive hanging on to it. Adair Manor between them. Desert Dawn on the outside. 3 of them come for the wire together in a thriller in the Clement Hirsch. Now Adair Manor gains the ascendancy, and Adair Manor will win. Adair Manor won it. Desert
Dawn, underrated fun horse. She's always right there. She really does a lot of good running, but has figured out running second will still get you fed. What says Dan Illman?
Louie, every time Desert Dawn goes into the paddock and she sees Adair Manor, she's got to be like, if she just didn't exist, I'm the top filly in mare. I'm the top one in Southern California. She shows up, there's Adair Manor. She tries her heart out. You're right. She's just a really cool horse, but Adair Manor is just on another level. And I think we're seeing the maturation of Adair Manor. She's been brilliant throughout her career, but you look at her PPs going into last week's race. She was a need the lead type, or a horse that always ran her best when she's right there at the throat latch of the pace setter at the half-mile pole. Here they gave her a little bit of work to do, and it was a little unfamiliar for her. I like the way she was able to grind down the leader and still hold off the closer. She's getting good right now, and the 2 big names in the filly and mare division back east, Idiomatic, Randomized. I think there are some question marks now coming in after the last couple of races for Idiomatic, the champion. Adair Manor's got the home court advantage come BC time. Maybe she's able to finally turn the tables on those 2.
That makes 3 graded wins in a row for Adair Manor. Does that Hirsch. Obviously, really barely getting by in that Molly Pitcher. You and I were there in Monmouth that day. For Idiomatic, she'll run next, it looks like, in the Personal Ensign. Is she just the type of horse, Dan, that's never going to win a race by more than a length?
I would like to think that's not the case. Watching her last couple of races, however, boy, I mean, with Randomized at Saratoga, if you want to argue, all right, the track was sort of playing the horses on the lead. Randomized got the jump on her. Idiomatic tried hard in the stretch, couldn't get there. At Monmouth, on paper, she's supposed to win easy. And on the backstretch, with the trip she got, she's supposed to win easy. And then you're terrified at the 5/16 pole when the horse comes to the outside of her. And then she's all out to win. And I'm wondering, I don't know if she's playing with these horses. I don't know if maybe she's just bored out there. I don't know if she's just not the same horse she was last year. But there are questions. And the Personal Ensign is going to be a big, big test for her. With her sort of tactical speed and her ability, she's going to give a good account how short a price you want on her in that race. And if you're playing futures for the Breeders' Cup Distaff, I'm not sure how low I'd go with her either. But I think that Randomized is the horse with the upside. Adair Manor, though, has got the home court edge and is also just razor sharp right now. You hate to say a horse with Idiomatic's abilities and
Resume.
accomplishments
Oh my
with a
gosh.
question mark resume, but
Yeah.
wow, there is a question.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. There was some Twitter kerfluffle, if you will, young Dan Illman, about Florent Giroux's ride in that race. Are you critical of his ride in that race?
I'm not really critical of his ride in that race. I mean, he gave her I understand what people are saying. You're supposed to open up after you drop the fractions down and make her chase. I think when you're 1 to 5 or whatever she was in there, I think actually Flo tried to get away, and that horse just stayed with her. So either that horse is very improved, or idiomatic is not the same idiomatic. I'm not going to really criticize Flo. Plus, he wins the race. Yeah, I'm not going to critique the winning ride.
Scylla overtaken in the Hirsch by a dare mare. How good is Scylla? Or is she more of a second tier type of a 2-turn horse at this point?
I think that race proved that she was a second tier type of horse. It's kind of disappointing because I wanted her to be a lot better. I think Bill sent her out to Southern California to avoid idiomatic and randomized, figuring, okay, there's only one big dog out there, and that's a Dare Manor. And the way she ran, that was terrible. So it's almost starting completely over with her. I like the things she did at Churchill Downs. She's a professional, solid racehorse who just has to get faster.
Yeah, we'll see what her next stop is. But the daughter of Tappet, obviously, in that Bill Mott barn, has the lowest of all of the buyers of anyone in that division that's won at a high level with a 93. I think her races always seem faster than that. I don't know. It all totally goes into her buyers, but I think she's at least in that group. Should be a fun time leading up, frankly, second season here in 2024, leading into the Breeders' Cup. Well, it is time for our Manscaped read. Dan, do you have something prepared tonight, or is that my my job?
I'm going to allow you to do it because you did such a really nice job last time. I have to admit, it was great when you asked Issel if he was using the product, and he was like, "I'm not going to do that." And then you had to explain to him that it was for the face.
I literally bought him the face-only blade, knowing it was a 75-year-old man who's not going to be trimming. He's not a Brazilian man or anything like that. But yes, it was. Look, I understand, because look, just because there are bowling balls in the logo doesn't mean that it's only for the bowling balls, right? I mean, that's really what it's about. Dan.
Well, right. And again, I would have hoped he would have figured that out. And we have to maybe educate the public. Maybe he's not the only one. Maybe there are a lot of folks out there that think it's just for the groinal region. Well, the groinal region.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It's smooth. Smoother than a
no,
baby.
that's absolutely correct. And if you're someone like me, where there's not a lot going on up here these days, or anymore, or ever again, and you don't want to have to pay to go to the barber, and your wife is nice enough to clean up the scraps, the remnants, if you will, the George Costanza style, once great civilization of hair. Or if you have a great beard like producer Zach or Mike Gandolfo, you can always buy the beard trimmer, the beard lotion, man. People absolutely swear by it. Go check it out. Use our promo code Horse Racing, all one word, 20% off, free shipping to your house, included, by the way, on sale items. So get an extra 20% off anything you get at manscaped.com, not just for your groinal area, for your face and your beard as well. So there you go. All right, let's get into some handicapping this weekend. Dan, I'm going to ask you, because this is an unusual happening, but because of the storms, Saratoga not running tomorrow. They are moving 2 of the turf races to Sunday. The big ones, frankly, that we've already moved once. And so we're going to do that again. Are they going to be part of any sequence, or are there rules in New York where they have to be standalone races now?
I think they're going to be standalone races because of the rules, and I think that's going to mess
idea.
everything up on Saturday, because they were part of some major late wagers. So it's going to hurt the bettor a little bit. It's going to hurt the handle. It's obviously good for the horsemen, and it's obviously good for down the road, because these horses are not going to have to reroute or run off the turf or run on a boggy, just ridiculously soft turf course on Saturday, and it helps their preparation down the road leading up to the Breeders' Cup. But yeah, it's going to hurt a multiple race wager standpoint both days, because Saturday I don't even know how they're going to handle the multis there, and Sunday these are standalones.
Yeah, no. So an interesting thing. I guess it's good that we can bet on them, and we're not just running for purse money on Sunday.
They were if one bet on them, I wouldn't be watching them.
I want to see a cross day pick 6. Come on.
Well, you can't do that at Saratoga anymore, because they're having to move these races so much. The 2-day wagers are already kind of a little risky to begin with, and now we're finding out that maybe not the best way going forward. Dan Illman with us, DRF, here on Horse Racing Happy Hour. We get into our handicapping now. A couple of really interesting cards. You're going to have to figure out, folks. I apologize in advance when these races are actually being run, but we'll start at Saratoga. We talked about the Saratoga Derby Invitational last week. I had to go through because they redrew this race, and so the horses are in a different starting spot in the gate. This will be race, race 6 on the card. Dan, where did you land in this one? I thought this was, if not the best field, top 2 field of 3-year-old turf horses that we've seen.
Oh, certainly is. I mean, I don't know. I like deterministic in this race. I'm really interested in your thoughts. Again, this horse is going to be a little bit wet. And I think this horse is really going to appreciate it. I thought the turf debut was pretty good at the Manila last time out. He was really moving at the end of that race. That pace was not very fast, but he was able to really kick on late. I think a lot of folks are going to be worried about distance with him. I think he's okay at the distance. I was talking to my buddy Mike Bureau. He likes this horse as well on top on Saturday. Trickery is very, very dangerous. I'm not sure if he's running here or at Colonial right now. If he runs there, he's a logical horse. Legend of Time, though, what can you say? The horse is very, very consistent. I like deterministic's running style for this race, and I think the distance will be within his scope.
I'm interested in Fulmineo here just because of what you mentioned, because of the softer ground. This horse has gone back-to-back softer ground races at Pimlico and at Colonial that you just mentioned. Will that horse be able to get a similar kind of trip? Now, both of those at a mile, we're going significantly farther than that. Last time this horse went a mile and an eighth, though, it was part of the final equation at Laurel Park there, and maybe just didn't have enough time to pick up the pieces in that race. Could the horse jump up here? This is a big step up in class for Fulmineo for sure, but has shown it over soft go before. Interested because I think we'll get every bit of 10-1 on that horse in this.
Oh, no, you're going to get a price on this horse because he is stepping up in class and distance, as you mentioned, and his buyers are light. But the point you make cannot be overstated. Wet turf course, this horse is a different horse, and blinkers on. The light bulb has seemingly gone on with this horse. I really respect Arnaud de la Cour and the work he does, and I think the extra distance will be okay for him. He's run better at he's run okay at slightly longer distances. It's not as much of a question as it is with Deterministic, whose big races have come 7 to a mile.
I'm also interested in Royal Majesty in here, the 3-horse. Junior Alvarado getting the mount there for Belmont. Ran well, I thought, in the Belmont Derby last out at Aqueduct in the earlier part of July, gets that month off. I think technically it falls into the 31 to 60 days off category on the form. But I think that horse, especially at a price as well, has been right there twice. Could this be the race where that horse gets over the top? We're looking at 10-1, 8-1 on those kinds of horses, I think, make for a really interesting spot in the Saratoga Derby Invitational. That'll be race 6. Let's get to the special.
Quick, Louie, I want to talk about one of the horses real quick, and that's First World War for Frankie Dettori and Brendan Walsh. And I want to use this horse along with Deterministic. I just thought maybe he moved a little bit too soon last time out and then flattened out at Churchill Downs. I know his big win came at Penn National 2 starts back, but this is a horse that didn't exactly have the cleanest trip in that race. He has kind of sneaky tactical speed. The wet turf course is a big question.
It'll be interesting to see him for sure on Saturday. Saratoga special as well. A reminder, Dan has a book about how to bet maidens and how to bet 2-year-olds out there in the world. So go find that. I looked on Amazon, several sales since you were on last month. You're welcome.
Well, no, I really appreciate it. Why do you think I mentioned it? I mean, it's about time. You see it on Amazon. It's not like I check. I'm not the kind of guy who's big into publicity or self-aggrandizement or anything like that. No, but it was nice to see. Someone told me.
The check comes in the mail. You notice it. It's a thing, right? Or does that go to your agent? I can't remember. Anyways, the Saratoga specials on Saturday. It's race 8, $200,000 here. Grade 2. Dan, we have seen so far at Saratoga this year some absolute bombers come from wherever in these kinds of races. Do you allow that to affect your handicapping in these races where it's just like, hey, maybe we're doing the crazy 2-year-old thing at Saratoga this year? Or is that, hey, that was that race, we're talking about this one?
That was that race. It's a clean slate. And I'm just going to handicap the Saratoga special the way I would handicap any other race. And let's just be honest. You think 2-year-olds, you think Wesley Ward. And he's got touchy in here. And the fact that this horse took so much money for his debut in that stakes race during the Belmont Stakes Festival, somebody liked this horse. He's a giant. If you watch the replay of that race, he turns into the stretch. Steve Asmussen's little 2-year-old tries to sneak through inside, and Touchy's very green. He showed speed. He kind of drifted a little bit, turning for home. Rosario tries to get him inside to look that little guy in the eye. Almost ate him, this giant. And then he gets run down by Studley Do-Right. I think it was a really good learning experience for this horse. I think he's still growing and still figuring this out. And I don't think he's a need the lead type. So we're going to find out if Touchy is the real deal or if maybe he's a morning glory.
I'm interested. The outside horse here is Keep It Easy. I watched this horse break its maiden at Churchill Downs for Dale Romans. And Dale, I got to be honest, used to be the 2-year-old king, Dan. And that's a man who's made a lot of changes in his life. I think he's back to training better. His numbers have gotten back to a significantly better percentage. I'm interested in that horse on the outside just because this is the 3rd start. And I wonder if the light went on last time for this horse at Churchill Downs. Do you look for that sort of thing with 2-year-olds?
I like to see improved speed. That's an old Andy Beyer angle if you go back to some of his old books. Improved speed in the second lifetime start or the second start of the form cycle. I agree with you. I think the light bulb went on second time out. This horse has such a nice pedigree, and he sold for so much money. They probably shouldn't have given up on him after only 1 start. He was a giant price last time out. Now, with this outside post position, I think they're going to let the speeds go. It actually gives the rider some options. I'm really not too worried about the outside post. And this is something Dale Romans excels at. Maiden winners last time out and 2-year-olds, he knows how to place them. If this horse wasn't ready for a graded stake, he wouldn't be running at Saratoga. I think he's the goods. I think the price will be there. I'm definitely using him.
Yeah, if he thought that, I mean, he could just run the horse in the juvenile at Ellis Park for $25,000 less, right? I mean, he really could just go do that and make the case for him there. I agree with you on that part as well. Should be a fun one. That's always a good race every year. The next one, we are told, is the Troy. We will talk about the Troy now. Technically, it'll be run. This is one of the races that got moved. Yes, Dan?
No, I think is the Troy staying? I think the Troy is staying on Saturday at Saratoga, which makes me wonder, going to get washed off?
Oh,
or it's canceled, right? I mean, or I don't know, washed off.
I mean, it's a grade 2. And I understand wanting to protect the grades. I really do. I want to be very fair to the NYRA people here because I do understand trying to protect the grade on this. But let's talk about it at all of the different angles, Dan, here. Let's talk about it as though this $300,000 grade 2, 5.5 furlongs on the bougie Mellon turf course. Let's talk about it as though it's being run on the turf, Dan. Obviously going to be soft no matter what. Do you have a favorite here? Is this the simplest race on the card? Can Cogburn just do this thing?
If he certainly runs his race last time, they're all running for second, and he was super obviously. What did he break the North American record last time out, going 5.5? That was just an unbelievable performance. Now, maybe a wet turf course will be a completely different story for this guy because he likes to hear his feet rattle. He likes to be close to the pace. But just in the form he's in right now, it's so hard to go against him. And there are some good horses in here. I respect Groom's All Business. I respect Outlaw Kid. These are nice horses. But they can't touch this horse if he runs his last race, right?
That's right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. If we're talking about filling out an exacta or a trifecta, Dan, I really like Whitty, who is perfect, by the way. 6 for 6, finishing first or second at this distance, lifetime 3-3, wins and places in 6 starts. Gets that inside post, but I think a horse with this kind of experience, having run 23 times in his life, 8 wins, 9 seconds, just going to be part of the equation at the end. Never run at Saratoga, interestingly enough, even though the horse has been all up and down the East Coast, frankly, from Laurel to Toronto. It has never made the stop at Saratoga for this one. If we're washed off the turf, is there a horse you're especially looking at?
Well, I think you have to respect Whitty if he runs here. I know he's also cross-centered at Colonial because he's good dirt, he's good turf. Lizzie Merriman's done a very nice job with Whitty. I think this horse was just recently sold to Cotter Racing. He's just a nice horse. Sometimes with Whitty, you have to worry about the break with him. Sometimes he's such a big horse that sometimes sort of his back legs just sort of break out. The ground breaks out from under him and he breaks a length or two slow. But there should be some pace in this race, whether it's turf or dirt, and he'll kick on in the stretch. I have a lot of respect for Whitty as a racehorse and the respect for the job they've done with him.
Is Disarmed on the outside for Rudy Rodriguez a potential upset in this race?
I like him underneath more than as a potential upsetter. I'm just not sure if I really want to have too much money in against Cogburn. And again, of course, the wet turf course it would be a big question mark for him. But I just don't really want to have too much money in against him. I don't want to gamble against him. But maybe I could use that horse underneath, certainly.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. All right, the 4-star Dave. This will be on Sunday, folks. It's a mile on the inner turf course there. Just a race that, Dan, I think it's there aren't a lot of races like this, but I feel like we get a great performance every year in the 4-star Dave.
No, you get the top milers in the country. It seems turf milers in the country every time in the 4-star Dave. I'm curious as to your opinion. Ottoman Fleet, every time he runs, he shows up. Anyone's big numbers. He's run, what, 5 times in this country, and he's got buyers of 99 or better in every single one of those races. Why am I not as big a fan of Ottoman and Fleet as I should be? Because I should like horses that win, and he's got great tactical speed, and he's got everything I like. Why am I not a fan of Ottoman and Fleet? Why am I not using him in the 4-star Dave?
If you're on More Than Looks, we have a problem here, Dan, and we can't do the show together anymore.
Close.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to use More Than Looks. He's my second pick in the race.
Yeah,
my buddy Mark here likes him a lot. I am a huge fan of this horse. I have to admit that the combination of the layoff, the fact that he was entered in the lure the other day and he got, washed off there. So now they're running here. It makes me wonder a little bit about a fitness standpoint. He's good enough on his best day to win this race. I would use him. I think Carl Spackler is going to run a big race. I really think he's the kind of horse that always hinted at ability, and I think he's been a little bit dirtied up even off his win last time because it was a short field. He only won by a half length. Go back and watch that race. Tyler never got to the bottom of him. It was a strong hand ride. You could place that horse anywhere. So I'm going to use him over More Than Looks. Those are my two. Something tells me you like More Than Looks. If you get 4-1 on him, that's fair.
I think it's really fair. That combination too, it's just something about, especially 2024, about how Cherie DeVoe is placing her horses in stakes races that I think is really exceptional this year. Her and I read 5 for 10 their last 10 times together with mounts as well. I love that kind of angle. I think it does matter. I'm with you though. I seeing this horse back here instead of in a softer spot is a bit of a question, but I think he's got all the ability, and I'm going to get a price there. I totally disagree with you. I think if Ottoman Fleet runs that race that he ran last out in the Wise Dan, I think he does win this race. I think that's just what it is. Gets out front, stays out front. Flavien Prat rates. He's been as good on that turf. Yeah. Who's been, outside of Irad, we're talking kind of historically good this year for Flavien on the turf at Saratoga, are we not?
No, he's a great jockey. There's no doubt about it. No, I would say it's historically good. He's exceptional, and he knows how to ride horses with varying styles. And this horse can be placed anywhere Flavien wants. If another horse wants to, the horse on the rail's got speed. If Mark Cassie's going to send that horse, this horse can sit second. Ottoman Fleet sit third. I'm really not worried about position. I'm just a little bit concerned that maybe he's not as good as he appears on paper. And again, he's done nothing wrong. I really shouldn't be even knocking him. I guess I am a little bit. I'm just not as big of a fan as Ottoman Fleet as I should be. I watch his races and I'm like, he's good. And who can I find to beat him?
Getting into the Colonial races now as we head to Virginia. Why are there only 6 horses in the Beverly D and only 6 horses in the Arlington Million?
That's a good question. And I hope it's not because people are looking their nose down at the Arlington Million and the Beverly D because they're not at Arlington Park anymore. But I don't think that's the reason. I think it's because of the looming big purses at Kentucky Downs, and everybody wants to be fresh to run for $2 million. And unfortunately, I think we've been seeing races at Saratoga come up with some short fields and stakes races, and even the day-to-day racing. Maybe folks are saying, I could stay at Ellis Park and run for giant purse money and allowance and maiden races and set things up for Kentucky Downs as well. It's great for the horsemen, the Kentucky Downs races, but I think it may hurt the races in the weeks and a month or two leading up to that meet.
Do you think there could be incentive then for a place like Colonial to change the overall dating of this race, maybe move it up a week or two?
I think it's probably a good idea. The question is, where does it fall with some of the other turf races? With Saratoga running, it's always difficult.
Right.
I think the Arlington Million should have a spot on the calendar. And not only should it have its spot, it should have a revered spot on the calendar where you get a big field because the race has such a rich history.
Outside of your beloved New York tracks and, of course, your Mid-Atlantic tracks that you love so much, where was Arlington on your list?
I liked Arlington a lot. I've only went there a few times. It was such a beautiful racetrack. Now, I have to admit, I'm a big Polytrack fan. When they moved over there, I kind of sort of gravitated away from handicapping and betting on Arlington after that. I liked handicapping the turf races, obviously, on Million Day. Sure. You always got a great show there. Races like the Pucker Up and the Secretariat, just fantastic races. It was just a beautiful racetrack. It was a fan-friendly track. Again, it's just a shame. Now we're at Colonial Downs, a beautiful track in its own right, and a really fan-friendly track. I'm a big fan of going to Colonial Downs. And again, I hope for good things for the Million down the road.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get into those races now. Cool all turf and all stakes pick 3 here starts in race 9. 3-year-olds trying for $500,000 in the Grade 2 Secretariat on the inner turf course here. Obviously going to be softer. They move these races to Saturday. According to your colleague Marcus Hirsch, maybe a little less rain today than they thought they were going to get. So that turf should set up okay on Sunday. Where did you land in this one? Easily the most competitive, I think, of the 3 races on the turf in the graded stakes on Clodagh.
You go first. I gotta find my PPs. I'm all over. I'm all over the place here.
I'm all over here. You're just
5 million races, 20 million tracks. Wait a minute. Hold on. All right. Race number 9, Brilliant Bertie, down on the rail. You talked about Cherie DeVoe. And Cherie DeVoe putting horses in the right spot. And maybe you just don't have to put Brilliant Bertie in the right spot because his last 3 races speak for themselves. The horse has shown a strong kick in all of them. Last race, really nice performance in the American Derby. Beat First World War. It's a pretty good horse as well. We talked about him a little bit. I just think this horse is getting better and better. I think the mile is good. Love the inside post for him. I think this is a spot for Brilliant Bertie to maybe stamp himself as an interesting horse for this year and maybe even into next when the goings get tougher against older.
What do we think of that horse now that Brian Hernandez Jr. has announced he'll be at Ellis on Sunday?
Not really worried too much about the jockey. Axel Concepcion handled this horse really well 2 starts back. I would use Mike Beer's old axiom. It's not jockey racing, it's horse racing. And very rarely do I let a jockey affect my decision because you get a jockey that might be struggling or a jockey that might be lower profile. All it happens for me is you get a better price.
Is this race long enough for trickery?
I think it is long enough for trickery. I thought his race in the Penn Mile was deceptively good 2 starts back. It was sort of a lousy post position. He was hung out wide. He was part of the pace. I think between a mile and a 1/16 is actually very good for him. I know that Graham Ocean does want to stretch him out down the road, but with his tactical speed, you're going to know him turning into the stretch. He's a good horse. He probably is underrated, even with all the accomplishments in his career with that big win at Churchill Downs at a giant price.
Bear River is entered here. The 3 horse has largely done all of his work sprinting. But this is the kind of horse, Dan, that I assume they'll just send to the front under James Graham and just try to see if he's there at the wire. Can he do it? Because I think we're going to get longer than 6-1 on this horse. I think we'll get 8, 9, 10-1 on this horse.
I usually don't love horses stretching out. You know me, I like the cut back angle more than the stretch out angle, especially in races like this where he's stepping up in class. But if ever a horse deserved an opportunity in a major race, it's this horse, because just look at the form he's in. He's raging right now. He's won his last 3. I like James Graham with horses on the lead. He's known as a patient rider, sort of like a Julian Leparoux type, but they're exceptional when you get to the front because they're able to control the fractions and still save something for the end. Bear River, I think, is going to get to the front. The problem is what happens when a quality route horse like Trickery turns up the heat at about the 3/8 mile pole. We'll find out what kind of horse Bear River is then.
Interesting horse in here as well, at least in my opinion, had been running on dirt largely starting in March, but went back to the firm go at Gulfstream last out was General Ledger for Safi Joseph. Boy, that guy has horses everywhere this weekend. I'm trying to keep up with him. Jose Ortiz gets the mount here. This horse won under Edwin Gonzalez over 1.16 at Gulfstream last time. You give this horse much of a shot here coming out of Allowance Company?
I give him sort of an underneath chance. I'm not sure I really love him because, I mean, they were willing to lose him for 75 last time out. Maybe they got away with stealing, moving back to the grass. He's good on dirt. He's good on turf. He's got tactical speed. His figs are okay. I think the trip sort of worked out for him last time out. And I really questioned who he beat, but it's worth noting they put the blinkers on and he got that confidence boosting win. I want him to do it again to prove it to me, even though the price should be right.
All right. We move on to the Beverly D. This is a win and in for the Breeders' Cup here, so we will be paying attention in this case. I like a long shot in this race here, Dan. 6 entries in this 1 mile and 3/16 on that outer turf.
Don't be the same long shot I'm on. Don't do it.
Oh, Lord.
Don't do it. Don't you say Mission to Joy.
Okay, good. I'm on Nisi Marie here, so that's great. Okay, good. I'm drawing a line through the Diana. I'm going to try to get back to that New York form, and of course the Bogey, which she won earlier this year, I should say. Excuse me. I thought over 1 mile and 3/16 though at Saratoga in that New York, she looked really, really good. I think at the Diana, man, she got stuck 5 wide, just wasn't her race. I love that 10-1 price. I get Frankie Dettori on the grass, all of those things. I'm going to try a long shot here, Dan.
And I respect Nisi Marie. It's for her, a lot of it comes down to pace. Is she going to get a setup? Because she just doesn't have a lot of early speed. She has really overperformed for Butch Reed, who's one of the more underrated trainers in the game. Usually Butch Reed's horses show up and at prices in major stakes races. We saw that from Nisi Marie in the New York 2 starts back, where she ran a super race. She just happened to catch Didia, who's one of the best fillies and mares in the country. I do respect her. Mission of Joy is, to me, my kind of wacky long shot. I know Moira is sort of the name horse coming out of the Diana. She ran really well to be second. I don't think Mission of Joy had the most comfortable trip in that race, though. In and among, in between horses' first turn, all the way through the backstretch, into the second turn, got out, came with a little bit of a run. I've always had a little bit of a thing for this horse. She's another one that doesn't have a lot of speed, but I thought her race 2 starts back in the Just a Game, a race where she got wired, a race where she was outkicked, pardon me, by Chili Flag in the stretch. Yeah. I think that's a race that shows that she can step with these horses. Now, is she only a miler? That's a bit of a question as well. I trust Graham with this horse.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got Moira in here. She'll be 9 to 5 in the morning line for Kevin Attard. Obviously, she's coming out of only grade 1s and grade 2s her last 6 runs. Fev Rover in here, of course, at 2 to 1 as well. Does this just feel because of 6 horses here? I did want to ask you too. Last out, oh gosh, who was it? Nadette, right? Nadette wins the preview. Only 5 horses in that race. She didn't do she didn't have to do anything to win that race, Dan. Do you include that in your handicapping, that she was just so much better than those horses on that day? Or was that more of just a longer workout than usual?
I think you have to take in mind the competition that she's facing. And again, Nadette found the right spot. I think that's the way handicappers like to use it. She's 1 to 2 for a reason. It was a class drop. She won super impressively. You can't knock that. It's always nice to have a win over the course. The waters just get a lot deeper in here, don't they? There's so much better competition. I kind of know Nadette. It's not like she's just some unproven commodity that's come out of nowhere, wins a stakes race, is continuing to jump up in class. Who knows? I think I know what Nadette is. I'm just not sure. She's got to beat 3 or 4 good ones in here. She only had 1 to beat. Maybe I'd take a flyer at a price. You mentioned Fev Rover. She's the defending champion in this race. I wonder if this is the race they've been pointing to since the winter. They've circled this one. They've gotten 2 races back into her. Maybe she's cycling back to her best in the 3rd start of the form cycle. 2 to 1 just seems a little bit light in the field of this quality, though.
Yeah, and this does feel like the race, though, where we go, oh, yeah, right, big day, Javier Castellano, right? Like it just, oh, there he is. Okay, yeah, right, Javier Castellano, there it is. So I think that one actually sets up to be very, very fun and not an easy race to try to handicap, even though there are only 6. But we do move on to the star of the day, 1.25 miles, Arlington Million, obviously $1 million here, 3 and up on the turf course there as well. I think, Dan, even though 6 horses, I think 4 to 5 of these you could make a serious case for. Who did you land on in the Arlington Million?
I'm going to go with the European X Factor, Ancient Rome. And I think he's going to be a decent price in this race. And what I've liked from watching his races over there is his versatility. We saw how good he is at a mile when he came over here for Kentucky Downs, so the ship shouldn't be an issue. He's proven he can handle that in the past. But he's also run well at 1.25 miles. And he's not only versatile from a distance standpoint, he seems to be versatile from a running style standpoint. A lot of times these European horses, they come from 1 million lengths out, but he was able to stay close. Just a solid pace at Kentucky Downs when he was here going 1 mile. So I wonder if he's just going to kind of work out a trip sitting 2nd or 3rd under Jamie Spencer. His last race was very hard for me to analyze. The winner of that race is on his way to group stakes. He's something like undefeated from 4 starts. Very excited about him. Everything behind Ancient Rome, not very good. He sat last. He came outside. It was a good kick. Same issues I have with Fev Rover. Maybe this is the spot, 3rd off the layoff. I wonder if they're trying to prep him actually in the million for that race at Kentucky Downs again. Get him over here, get a race, and maybe that's the goal again. The purse is so giant. Sacrilege, I know.
It's amazing to say we're using $1 million race as a prep, but that's what Kentucky Downs does. They have 6 $2 million races on one day, Dan. I mean, I can't hate on anyone trying to win one of those races. I'm not mad at anybody.
I'm not mad at anybody trying to win 2 of those races, even using one as a prep. Ancient Rome is not, let's be honest, he's not a top-tier horse over there. But Correct. How many times have we seen it in the past? You don't have to be a top-tier horse from Europe to come here and beat our B+, A- players. And these are good horses in here. Yeah.
No, there are good horses in here, including Nation's Pride. You mentioned Bill Buick gets the mount here. Does and I hate to do this, but is the move from Frankie Dettori to Bill Buick, that's a step up, yes, at this point?
I don't know if it's a step up or not. Again, you're talking to the wrong guy. You're talking about jockey moves and angles. I don't pay attention to who's riding these horses 90% of the time. And they're all right. To me, they're all great. I mean, you find one or two that are on every circuit that are incompetent, and you just wouldn't play $2 on them if they had secretary, if they were riding secretary.
Right.
But
Yeah.
For me, William Buick, all-star jockey, Frankie Dettori, living legend, all-star jockey, even at his age. To me, it just comes down to what I think a Nation's Pride at the price is going to be. He's going to be the favorite in this race. He's obviously credentialed on a wet track. He's winning the Canadian Internationals against a terrible field last year. He's 2-5, but it was over boggy going, so he likes that. Yeah. Right. He's a proven commodity. I still love his two races this year. I know that he's faced Silver Mott to knock two back. That horse is probably the best sort of marathoner on turf right now, 12, 13, 11 furlongs. His last race in the Manhattan, the fig looks great. Everything looks great on the paper, except when you watch the race, he never was winning. Maybe measured times just better than these horses. To me, it was a suck-up second. I don't want 8-5 on him. He can easily win. Just don't like him at the price. I'd much rather have Integration as the second choice than Nation's Pride as the favorite.
Yeah, Integration's an interesting one. Kendrick Carmouche making the trip for this race as well. Sorry, that's a jockey. I shouldn't mention that. By the way, you're totally right. I talk about jockeys, but then I singled Fernando de la Cruz on Haskell Day. So what the hell do I know, right?
You get prices on jockeys that may not be under the radar. I mean, maybe it's not a great example, but was Seize the Gray 1 or 2 points more than he should have been in the Preakness because of the jock?
Yeah, because of Jaime, sure. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the kid's really good. Just no one knows him.
No, that's exactly right. Talk of the Nation is in this race. Never gone this distance for Todd Pletcher. Jose Ortiz picks up the mount here. Just a horse that's always near the front, and then part of the equation has been first or second or third, I should say, within a length in every race since February of 2023. Do you give Talk of the Nation a chance here?
I do, simply because of his speed. And he's coming out of that Carl Spackler race, and it was a race where he got a brilliant ride from Irad. The pace was not fast. He slowed it down. It turned into a 5/16 of a mile sprint. And Carl Spackler, we always had Talk of the Nation, but Talk of the Nation was well clear of the third-place finisher. We've seen this before in turf routes all across the country for many, many years, not just a New York phenomena, as my friend Mike Beer would like to say. Speed kills, even in longer distance races. I would have liked to have seen in his PPs that they actually tried to stretch this horse out. You got Shug, you got Pletcher. They know the money's in longer distance races, and they didn't really want to stretch him out past a mile and a 16th. But if he gets to the lead and backs down the fractions, I could see him being tough to reel in. I like him more as sort of a second or a third horse in my tries. Again, I'm going to be keying on the 1 and the 2.
In the daily racing form, whatever that is, in their division rankings, Master of the Seas, measured time on top, Johannes third, Silver Knot fourth. And I know I'm getting away from the handicapping. I was very impressed with Johannes last out at Del Mar. I think he's a really interesting one just because he is a Southern California distance, but speed as well. As you mentioned, speed does kill in his case for sure. And then Silver Knot, man, that horse just freaking shows up every time. He's just an honest horse, right? Between those two, where would you lean right now in your rankings?
Well, it's so tough because I think Johannes is more of a miler. Mile and a 16th type, mile and an 8th maybe at the most. I'm not sure if they really want, he's not a Breeders' Cup Turf, he's more of a Breeders' Cup Mile type. Well, Silver Knot is a true stayer. He's a horse that's going to go 1.5 miles. He's going to stay all day long. I guess I would lean, I really wouldn't lean towards any of them if you're saying pick the Breeders' Cup winner. I don't know if either one of them is going to win the Breeders' Cup. I think Johannes is more interesting to me because I think he has more upside, more explosiveness, and he has the home court edge. I just don't love the competition he's been beating over there, but I won't knock his record. He's a very exciting prospect. For Silver Knot, he's good, but what happens when the bears come over from Europe that were eating his lunch when he was over there?
Yeah, no, it's a legitimate question for sure. Do you have a favorite long shot this week? Have you mentioned them already?
I think I probably mentioned him already. Probably Mission of Joy in the Beverly D. I know she's going to be a big price, and maybe on paper she doesn't look like a likely winner. I think she's had sneaky trips in some of her races, though. And with Moira, she's the horse to beat. I'm not going to be willing to say Moira's 6 lengths better than Mission of Joy as she was in the Diana. I just think the trips made a lot of difference in that race, as it often will in turf racing. So I want to use her a little bit in the Beverly D.
All right.
How about you?
What do you get?
Give me a long shot. Because, by the way, you're too humble. You were killing it on Haskell Day. I will admit that. You were the king of the Jersey Shore. Wow.
Look at this. Yeah. Look at this. Look at this complexion.
Don't
I just look like
I
New
was
Jersey?
very,
Don't I?
very impressed. And you handled it. You handled it like a pro. Also, you weren't some goofball. Woohoo! Look at me, party time. No, you were standing there like you expected to win, like a winner.
I appreciate that, Dan. No one else got to see that, so I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. You know, I know what else saw that because I did exactly what Dan said. Kept it nice and easy. There you go. Get smoking for the win coming in from our guy, Sean.
Sure, after the races either.
Do you know what I did? I went and got a grandma pie after that. Do you like that?
Good for you. Good. For
yeah.
You.
It was pretty good. All I did was, by the way, I just looked up pizzerias in the neighborhood and I picked the one with the least number of tables. That's what I went for. Just a small place. Just, that was my joint. It was good.
Next time we'll text Miramati because he's the king. He knows where all the
king
pizza
of pizza.
places
That's exactly
the king of pizza. He'll know every sneaky under the radar joint with 5-star pies.
Well, there you go. Well, he's Dan Illman at DRF_Dan Illman on Twitter. Go find his stuff. The YouTube page. Tell everybody.
YouTube page, Daily Racing Forum. Check it out, please. We've got great videos, a lot of different handicapping opinions. Myself, Mike Beer, David Aragona, Ashley Mayu, Gino Bacola. Just a lot of handicapping, especially with the 2-year-old races coming up. Nicole Russo is just a breeding expert. She talks about the 2-year-old maiden races and stakes with me on Spa Baby. So check it out.
There you go. We will have Caitlin Free tomorrow. She's on the paddock call, reporting for Colonial Downs this year. So she will join us on Rabo & Co. 11:20 tomorrow on ESPN 680 here in town. And then 2:00 tomorrow, doing a special show for that late pick six, all stakes. We call them stakes at Ellis Park. We'll get into that tomorrow as well. Dan, really appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend. Enjoy a quiet day tomorrow. No Laurel and no Saratoga. What are you going to be doing tomorrow?
No Laurel, no Saratoga. I'll be looking for plays at Del Mar Friday evening, and I might have one in the stakes race. You'll have to go to the Daily Racing Forum YouTube channel to find out.
That's called a tease, people. That's professionalism. You understand me? That is a tease from one Dan Illman from the DRF. Dan, we appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon. There you go. Dan Illman. You cut off my man, Dan Illman. How are we doing that? Our guy Sean Collins is in the chat. You're cutting off Dan. There he is. There's Dan Illman. What are we doing? We're cutting Dan off. Now cut him off. That's better. Just cut him off right now. Get him out of here. We don't want to see Dan anymore. There you go. He's writing books and being famous on Amazon.com and all those things. There you go. Do you think his book was involved in Prime Day? Because I don't. How about that? Well, that'll wrap up this edition of the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Stay in touch with our podcast feed. You'll get that Kentucky Racing Spotlight show tomorrow as well. Talk to trainer Brett Calhoun ahead of those races on Saturday. He's got 3 in the stakes this weekend at Ellis Park as well. We'll try to hit that pick 6 tomorrow, hanging out with our guy Mike Reddy tomorrow at 2:00. We'll walk through those stakes, try to get you some winners there as well. For producer Zach and, of course, our guy Dan Illman, I'm Louie Rabo at Radio Louie on Twitter. It is time to get out of here. Zach, play some music. I need to go put kids to bed because I'm a little tired of them.